I've always been told that you will be happy as long as you're doing something you love to do. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's something you love. But I don't think it's as simple as that. Look Back is a one-shot manga done by Tatsuki Fujimoto, and it tells us a story about a girl named Fujino who loves to draw manga. Every week at school, there's a newspaper handed out to every student, and in that paper, there's a section dedicated to a small manga slot where Fujino submits her drawings. And everyone loves Fujino's weekly manga. You have people asking for autographs, people telling her that she's gonna be a famous mangaka, all her friends and classmates are saying that she's one of a kind. Drawing makes Fujino special. It's what makes her stand out. And I think everyone has something like this. It doesn't necessarily have to be drawing, but we all have that special thing that makes us stand out from everyone else. At least that's what it seems like. There's a reason why we're always trying to chase after things like recognition and praise from other people. And that's because we want to validate to not only ourselves but to everyone else that it's true. We have something special. When someone admires you for doing something you already love to do, that's one of the greatest feelings that anyone can receive because it proves to you that what you're doing matters. But there comes a time where all of that changes. During one of the weeks, Fujino gets pulled aside from class and is told that she has to share her manga slot with another person, Kyomoto, a student who isn't able to physically come to school. And Fujino doesn't think too much about it. Everyone loves her drawings and she knows she's the best artist in her 4th grade class, so no one's ever going to take that spotlight away from her. But the following week, everyone sees Fujino's manga side by side with Kyomoto's. And the difference in skills between the two students was obvious. Kyomoto's background art is absolutely stunning. She's on an entirely different level than Fujino, and since both of their works are right next to each other, people start to compare. And that's when Fujino no longer felt special. The moment we start to compare ourselves is the moment we allow our efforts and accomplishments to be chipped away by other people. No matter how much effort and time you know you've put in, that can all just disappear as soon as you realize that someone is better. It can feel like you're not doing enough. And that leaves Fujino with two options. She either quits and gives up, or tries to get even better. For the next 2 years, Fujino does everything she can in order to take back the recognition she thinks she deserves. Every day, everywhere, Fujino has a pen in her hand and a sketchbook in front of her. But even after working so hard and sacrificing so much, she was never able to gain that same respect she once had. Kyomoto's work continued to overshadow her in every way possible. And that shit fucking blows. To practice and practice years towards something just to see that you haven't even caught up to the same level as someone will have anyone thinking, does what I'm doing even matter anymore? Another person already does it way better than me, so what's the point of me trying to do anymore? And so one day, Fujino just snaps and decides to quit. Drawing was something that she loved to do, but it no longer made her happy. The constant comparison and the lack of admiration for her art made her lose sight of why she even started drawing in the first place. There wasn't a reason for her to pick up a pen anymore, and so she throws away all her sketchbooks, spends her time doing other things, and completely gives up. I've given up on a lot of things, mostly because I know that no matter how hard I try, there will always be people out there that can do it way better than I ever can. But it didn't always used to be that way. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with writing short stories. I remember the very first story that I wrote. It was about this bear that loved to eat spaghetti. I was a weird ass kid, okay? But the thing is, I didn't care because it was just me in my own little universe writing stories and loving every second of it. I remember as soon as I wrote the last sentence of my story, I ran and ran as fast as I could over to the couch where my mom was sitting to show her what I made. And seeing her reactions and laughing at my work was something that I could never forget, because even at a young age, I knew my stories were making a difference for someone, and that's what kept me writing and creating. But as I got older, I started to notice that there are other people that write short stories too. And that's when I realized that I wasn't the only one in my own little universe. And from that point on, no matter how many short stories I wrote, I was never able to get that same feeling I had when I first started, because I was constantly comparing myself to everyone else. It felt like someone had snatched everything away from me, even though nothing actually changed. It was just me trying to compete with everyone else because I thought that was the only way to get that same validation I had when I first started. And eventually, I just gave up. After coming to terms with giving up, Fujino finally meets with Kiyomoto for the very first time. And we find out that Kiyomoto is actually a huge fan of Fujino's work and has been following her art since she started way back in the 4th grade. She's an awkward girl who doesn't really know how to communicate well, but was still able to express her passion for Fujino's art. She adored her stories and told her that it's what inspired her to make manga too. And as soon as Fujino hears those words, she runs straight home through the rain, throws her wet shoes on the ground, sits down and pulls out a pen once more, because she had found another reason to draw. She was going to draw for her. And that's when both of them decided that for the next couple of years, they would draw together. Kiyomoto working on the backgrounds and Fujino working on the story and characters. And this was a really heartwarming scene, especially for me because I couldn't find a reason to start again, but Fujino did. And together, they were amazing. They drew every single day and loved every moment of it. They competed in magazines, talked to publishers, and started getting paid for doing what they already loved to do. Both of them were in a direction of becoming a big mangaka, just like they've always dreamed about when they were kids. All they had to do was continue working together and everything would work out. But at the end of the day, there are two artists, not one. Just like how people grow and change, so do aspirations. As both of them head towards their senior year of high school, they begin to separate. Fujino wants to continue making manga just like she's always dreamed about, but Kiyomoto wants to step away from it. She wants to go to an art school where she can indulge in her love for background art even more, and Fujino hates this. She starts to guilt trip Kiyomoto, saying that she's never gonna make it far without her and that she's heading in the wrong direction, saying all these hurtful things that she really doesn't even mean, all because she can't be honest with herself about not wanting to let her go. But the reality is, people go their separate ways and you have to go on yours too. And even though it was upsetting and heartbreaking, Fujino still found a way to pick up a pen, but this time alone. Years go by and Fujino's work is doing tremendously well. She had published multiple volumes of her manga and it was getting an anime. Her career was off to a big start. And as for Kiyomoto, she was working hard in art school and her backgrounds were improving just like she had envisioned. Two people who went their separate ways found success in their own passion. They had finally proved to not only each other but to themselves that they could be independent. Though they were no longer together, they were still content and happy of where they were. But that doesn't last forever. One day, Fujino looks up from her drawing pad and sees a broadcast. It's about a student who was killed at an art school, and that person was Kiyomoto. Fujino's only reason to draw was now gone forever. Not just separated, but gone. And it was like her entire world just imploded. Her enjoyment and love for drawing died alongside Kyomoto, and for the second time, she had lost her reason to draw. She puts her manga on indefinite hiatus and shuts herself out from the world. She blames herself for what happened because if she never pulled Fujino out of her house that day, she wouldn't have gone off to that college. And if she had given up drawing the first time, she wouldn't have to go to her funeral. Later that day, Fujino visits Kyomoto's house and stares at the door to her room. In the hallway, she finds one of her old 4-panel drawings that she made way back in 4th grade and tears it up. She hated everything about it. All it ever did was bring her misery. She wanted nothing to do with drawing anymore, and so she rips it up. But as she tears up the panel, some of it slips underneath the cracks of the door. And that's when we get to see this alternative timeline where Fujino doesn't pull Kyomoto outside her house that day, and we get to see Kyomoto's love for background art prosper all the way through, starting from when she was a kid, all the way to the same college where the incident happened. But in this timeline, Fujino, in the most cartoonish way, dropkicks the guy that killed Kyomoto and saves her life. And in the end, she asks Kyomoto to be her drawing assistant. Even in this timeline, Fujino chose to draw. In the next scene, we see Fujino entering Kyomoto's room for the very first time. And she sees that in her room, she has all her manga volumes, posters, surveys dedicated to her magazine, and the quote that she signed when they were kids. And after seeing all of this, Fujino gets up, opens her door, walks back to her place, sits down at her desk, and pulls out a pen once more. The last words in the manga were in the form of a question. Then why do you draw, Fujino? And for the longest time, I couldn't answer that. Why would Fujino continue to draw again and again after losing her reason for drawing so many times? And after thinking about it, the answer was simple. That's what it means to love something. When people say that you will be happy as long as you're doing something that you love, that doesn't mean that you're only going to experience just that. You're going to have moments where you hate it, and sometimes these moments linger on for what feels like forever. Tears are going to be falling. Things that you never anticipated are going to happen, but through it all, it's the combination of all your own emotions, experiences, good or bad, that make it special for you, because it's a part of who you are, and there's no one else that you can be. That's what it means to love something.